we'll be discussing perennial Lagos port congestion. Now, over 70% of the nation's cargo traffic is still concentrated here in Lagos, particularly Apapa and Tinkan Island ports. This heavy concentration is one of the major reasons Lagos continues to experience recurring port congestion. Now, joining us this morning to examine these issues is Yinka Aderibigbe. He's a journalist and social commentator. Mr. Aderibigbe, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us.
It's nice being here once again.
Okay, I started with over 70% of the nation's cargo traffic is still concentrated in Lagos, while Nigeria has multiple, or other seaports across the nation. Why do importers, or why are importers still shipping, into Lagos despite, their awareness of this congestion?
Well, I think largely it's as a result of government's deliberate activities focusing on Lagos. And don't forget, it is one of the biggest revenue points for the federal government and also the states. So for me, it's a positive one.
But for the state?
Yeah, even for the state, because
But which outweighs the positive or the negative now?
What it shows is that Lagos is still the bride to woo. That Lagos is still the economy to embrace.
Okay.
Don't forget that is a huge economy center. It's just that we are now here talking about the tailpin of those activities. But if you are looking at what the port brings into our IGR, our GDP collectively, you realize that if it's not the second largest, coming after oil, I think oil has even taken a dip now because of the global shocks and all of that. So we can't ignore that, And so for a state like Lagos that actually sits on the port, it's just its own lot to take care of the fallouts. And I think that the state is capable. It has shown resilience, it has shown the capacity, and also backed by with the activities of the federal government. Some sanity is returning to. It's not like what we used to have on that corridor, and I don't think it will ever get back to that point again, because one, the roads have been fixed. Both two connecting roads to the port, either to Tinkan or to Apapa Wharf itself, have been fixed. Now you have more reliable roads into the port. And, other issues are work in progress. And I believe that both governments are not sleeping on other issues that could facilitate logistics enhancement and then reduce the shocks and the stresses that this economic activity is bringing to the people of Lagos, especially to those living around that corridor.
So Lagos being the beautiful bride, what effects does this now have on the other ports, that we have? Lagos alone has 3, Rivers has 2. I also found out that there's one in Delta and one in Cross River. Is it that, importers, and shipping companies do not, ship through these other states at all?
They do, but you see, what Lagos enjoys is what in marketing you call brand loyalty. When people have come to taste a pudding, they rather want to stay with it. And I think that is what Lagos is enjoying, And looking at all the parameters, the state is the home of commerce. It is also the economic capital of the nation. So the parameters are there, the people are here. So it will take an importer, for instance, of daily needs goods
to
get to One, for
One,
instance, to get to Port Harcourt, for instance, to get to Warri Port, for instance, bring in his materials, and then still have to bring it to Lagos. It will cost you far less importing through Lagos and diffusing into the Lagos market. We have major markets in Lagos that can soak up whatever you think you want to bring. That's the truth. All those our mommy traders, if they tell you how much they are soaking in daily, you will be staggered. And that is what the economy over time has built in Lagos.
I'm still going to stay on that area. I'm talking about that, you know, while some states are not enjoying this, is there something government should do? Maybe like say, okay, maybe this particular type of goods, you know, should be taken to other states and just leave Lagos and let Lagos be. Because Apapa, for example, used to be like a GRA, and you know, I know quite a number of families that had to move out of that access because of the congestion there.
Well, our culture will say that you don't cure headache by beheading the head. That you want to take care of the tailpin of the gridlocks. Does not now mean that you demarcate the state. Does not mean that you take the intrinsic values that makes the state what it is today to other states. Yes, it will be okay if others could offer some competitive advantage, but that will have some effect on the total basket that Lagos, and I don't think that it will be of any good if Lagos will deliberately by itself tell other states, come and take this headache off me. Because, I mean, it is a very good headache.
Okay, they are enjoying it.
I mean, it's a very good headache.
Okay.
That you have an economy that is thriving. That, hey, you need to visit that place to know the numbers that are getting secondary employment, working as this or that within the ports. Okay. Assisting to move the cargoes in one way or the other. So it's something that Lagos, and I think they are applying themselves to it. Okay. The tailpin of it is just what is the issue, which is controlling the traffic and all of that. I don't think Lagos is sleeping.
When we're talking about the traffic now, because you said earlier that, you know, things have improved, it's not as bad as it used to be. So the traffic now, is it inside the port or, you know, mainly outside of the port?
Now it is within the port areas.
Okay.
Before, it stretches even getting close to Ojota here.
Really?
Oh, yes.
I thought it was just on that Western Avenue
goes over
bridge.
Western Avenue, comes
very close.
Yes, far behind Palm Grove and all of that.
Wow.
To Antonia and all. Yes. Up to that point, yes, it was very bad in the last couple of years. At least I know of a fact, and that was one of the reasons why the late President Muhammadu Buhari set up that tax team headed by Dr. Kayode Okpeifa to bring sanity to that corridor. Okay. It was so bad that even the PSP Loma operators could not enter Apapa, and so the whole place is just stinking. People are generating waste, you cannot evacuate it because you can't gain access. But right now, the thing is limited within the economic hub of the Apapa access roads. And I think that really you cannot take that away because that is actually the economy we are talking about. You cannot clean up completely because that is the economy. A vessel may come at
the chaos is part of the economy.
It is the economy. A lot of things are happening within that economy that we start. The amount people are making the amount exchanging hands daily in what will seem to be confusion. You'll be shocked that, okay, if there's money in confusion, I think that
I'd rather be confusion myself. Now, let's look at some of the interventions by the federal government, to bring sanity to that access. Let's talk about the electronic call-up system, the ETO, and how it helped in reducing, this traffic gridlock we're talking about.
I think largely, if there is anything that has reduced it, it is the revamping of the roads. Now you have more rigid roads, unlike the laterite bitumen surfaced roads that were there before.
Okay.
You now have more rigid roads, pavements that are, built to suit the stress.
Concrete.
Yes, concrete roads.
Okay.
They are built to suit the stress of that corridor.
Okay.
So that actually helped. Because largely, a laden truck would not be able to run smoothly on a bad portion.
Yeah.
Because the carriage will tilt. And then there will be more confusion, there will be more crisis. So that has helped really. The ETO, I do not think it is really working up to steam.
Because it was even resisted.
It was. So it's not really working up to steam.
Okay.
So I would not really say much of the control has been as a result of that. Then again, there are issues regarding the laybys, the holding bays that are within the Apapa complex, the Apapa Port complex. All of that confusion, that end of that confusion happened as a result of the concessioning that happened at that spot. Okay. So much of the areas used for holding bays were concessioned. And the new owners threw all the tenants out. So that actually also caused a lot of the crisis. But right now, I think some sanity is returning in areas of holding bays. A lot of concessionaires are also taking spaces there to expand the existing holding bay, so that even if you get into the corridor, before you receive your call-up, you can have a place to stay off the road. Because it is when you get on the road that you become a menace, that you now begin to block traffic. So when they take you off the road, you have a place to hold.
To wait
till you are called until you are called onto the road, onto the port complex itself. Then, so all of these are things that government, like I said earlier, is working on. But largely also is the need for the rail to have access again to the port complex. And I think now that is the managing director of Nigerian Railway Corporation, it's a very cardinal thing that, and is applying himself to it to ensure. Because he was appointed January last year. By February 10, he has already signified the focus of his management leadership by going to the port, signing an MOU with the largest operator there, APMT, to lift cargoes from the port by rail. That is actually the way to go.
Because just yesterday we had this conversation on transport, road transport, and how attention should be taken away from the road and people should use more of the waterways. And I'm glad you have started the conversation by talking about what Mr. Okwefa is doing right now. I also want to talk about how the waterways, can also be in use to reduce this perennial gridlock on our roads.
Well, if you're looking at the gridlocks versus the contributions of the waterways, our major issue will be the low head of our bridges entering into the port complex.
And they have to carry containers.
Because we are talking of barges that will float on the roads, on the waterways. Now, by the time you pile a container on that barge, it will be hitting the low end of the... So that's actually a major problem for water transportation. And it's really affecting the optimization of the water mode as a very good option for evacuating cargoes off the ports. However, you know, it's not impossible for government to still do what need to be done. Maybe they need to dredge more of those areas approaching the bridges, so that it will create some sort of space for the bridge. Because it's the only way to go if we must use the waterway. But we have not even taken cognizance of, and we have seen the impact that rail could go, on how far it could go. Because a well-maintained locomotive could pull as many as 100 containers off at one go.
Wow.
Oh, no. And I'm talking of 40-feet containers. And so, I mean, if you, a 40 feet will only take a trailer. So imagine you are having 100 trailers off the road because a train has taken them. So that's one of the advantages that we can maximize. And I believe it is time. You see, the government needs to put its money where the mouth is. More people we want to use the best option possible. But if you are limited to just the available one, which is road, you then have nothing to do. They will be using that, and then they'll be giving you the headache. It is the governor, it is the president that will not be sleeping. By the time he begins to see the photo footages of what he would have done better if he had applied himself to something else. Okay,
let's talk about the Lekki Deep Seaport, that's development of new seaport. What effect will that have on, what we're talking about now?
Yes, it will really make Nigeria more competitive.
But it's still in Lagos. That is the problem I am having with it.
Yeah, not see. Yes, you can.
We're having 4 ports in Lagos.
You can talk of now shifting the headache from Apapa to Lekki.
Okay. Yes.
Right. You can say, okay, so the headache of traffic congestion and all the attendant issues will now move to Lekki. But the issue also is that it will make the country more competitive, because that would be one of the deep sea ports in the country. Apapa is fast becoming, in fact, a lot of stakeholders will tell you it's a river port. It's not a seaport.
It's a river port.
So you need a seaport that can take larger vessels that have deeper drafts. And so it will make the country more economic. The viability will be there. Many of our importers who would rather go to Cotonou or go to Côte d'Ivoire or go to Ghana will now be able to use the Lekki Deep Port to bring their goods closer home, which will save them more money. Because by the time you get to those other places, you have to also think of transshipment to Nigeria.
But are we not going to go back to what we're running away from? And
the state government is already addressing that. The Ministry of Transportation is really hard on that axis introducing electronic call-up system. Yes.
It did not work in Apapa. How are we sure it's going to work here?
It will work here because the government is applying itself to it here. And I believe that they are doing it right, because they are calling the relevant stakeholders regularly on why they need to just support the government on that corridor. We cannot afford to congest that place because there's so much of activities going on there. You have the free trade zone, you have the Dangote refinery, you have the Dangote fertilizer company also on that corridor. So many things around that corridor, providing accommodation. That's also where many of the developers are heading now. It's the new Lagos. So you cannot afford to mess it up like what they are trying to claim.
Okay, someone just sent in a question and he said, is the issue not more about coordination among all the agencies operating at the ports?
Yeah, it's also a very, very big issue. And thank you for sending that in. It's a very big issue because most of the time you realize that many of them at the ports are working in silos. You know, the MPA is not working in sync with the Nigerian Shippers Council. That is not also working in sync with the Nigerian Customs. The Nigerian Customs is not working in sync. So you find that everybody is just taking their kingdom and ruling as they like. But if you really want the system to work, transportation at that level of logistics management must be integrated. You must have a situation where the customs will end every of its check within the port. You must have a situation where the MPA do all it has to do with all the regulatory parameters that will not. So even the shippers must ensure that, yes, everything is done in accordance with the law. So all of what is happening, yes, I agree. Minus all infrastructural
coordination
issues.
too.
Coordination is key. There's also the area of conflict policy management. I mean, you find a situation where the state government might introduce a policy, the federal will say, no, this is our territory. Remember there was a tax the government introduced at the point that every container into the state will pay a certain tax and all that. They called it a name. I've forgotten that now. I think the pioneer chairman of that was brother who was, what's his name? I've forgotten now. Who was who later, okay, he was formerly ACN populations officer before moving to that, and then forgotten.
I can't remember his name.
So you find that it's policy and policy implementation. It's also a major challenge.
Okay.
Yes, it finds roots in people just holding onto their areas and not allowing for integration.
Okay.
And that is killing the maritime sector and demarketing the nation's economic viability, especially regarding the waterways.
So most of the issues or the challenges, contributing to this perennial gridlock at the ports is also coordination, operational, and not just infrastructure. So if we are asked, or if I ask you, okay, what are the top 3 priorities, you could advise government on to do, what would they be?
The first will be a major support for the Nigerian Railway Corporation to optimize its operations in the port. The second will be a look into what the caller said, policy coordination amongst all agencies of government.
Okay.
Even in the area of enforcement, who is actually responsible at that end? Is it FRSC? Is it LASMA?
LASMA from the state government. LASMA is also working there.
Is it the police? Is it the MPA?
Yeah.
So yes, there's so much of confusion about who is the apex coordinating enforcer. So we need to also look into that. We need to look into aging infrastructure. Many of the operators are groaning today because their equipment are very old,
obsolete.
I don't know whether you've had cause to move at night and see trucks with just one headlamp, or others that are not
no headlamps at all. Yeah, yes.
Many of them you will see practically their tires
wobbling. Some are not even functional.
You find that many are suffering in silence, just wheeling the chain of the economy. Maybe there is also the need for governments to give them a stabilization fund to reflect their equipment. You find many of those equipment in use today are more than 50 years old. They have passed the vehicle life cycle, but they are still on the road because the economy must move. If you want to shut down this economy, shut Apapa for a day, or ask the trailers to close shop for a day. You discover that nothing will move, nothing will come in, because everything will be stocked at the port. Those people helping us to move, even as terrible as our equipment are, they are helping this economy, and they are helping the government to generate the IGR that we all acclaim every year. They are helping the Nigerian Customs Service to bring in the much needed funds into the coffers of government. So all of them are connected.
Someone sent in something. I can't read it on here. Maybe we'll have that conversation when we go up. Just before we go, looking ahead, are you optimistic that, Lagos can fully overcome this perennial gridlock at the port?
If we all agreed that we were in worse situation in the 2020s to 2024, then we'll realize, I'm even saying 2024, I should even have said 2019.
2019.
That was when you have President Buhari in place. I would say that yes, Lagos can overcome, and Lagos is indeed overcoming. The traffic at Apapa must be there. What you are seeing is a reflection of a healthy economy.
A reflection of a healthy economy.
Oh yes. And I do not envisage the state deliberately selling off or ceding off its own.
It's like giving up your birthright.
This is our own pot of soup. So let us eat it
and enjoy
it. But we can manage what is bringing to us. It is human made.
Are we not
and it is all within our capacity to resolve.
Are we not living up to Fela's songs, Suffering and Smiling? Thank you very much, Mr. Yinka Aderibigbe, journalist, social affairs commentator. And we've been talking about perennial Lagos port congestion. Lagos port remains a gateway to Nigeria's economy, and the stakes are simply too high. We'll be right back after this short break.